What's going on YouTube? It's Pico.Blurred back again with another video. Got my client in the chair. We're about to do a mid drop fade, texture fringe kind of look. Get him ready for an event he's going to. But yeah, let's go ahead and just jump right into this tutorial. And so the first thing I'm doing here is just making sure that all the hair is laying in the direction that it naturally wants to go in. You don't want to be fighting hair when you're cutting it. If you try to brush in a direction that it doesn't want to go and then you end up cutting it, it's going to be shorter than what you're expecting. Then you're going to throw off the shape of the haircut. So just grab you a good comb, especially with this length of hair. Get you a comb and comb out all the hair the direction that it naturally wants to go. And then we're going to start off this fade by debulking all of the sides, just so we can be able to see our fade steps easily. If you try to fade in all this bulk, you're not gonna be able to see your lines easily, and then you're gonna make it harder for yourself. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my number 2 guard, and I'm gonna go ahead and debulk all of the sides and get ready for my first fade steps, my first ball guideline. So I'm taking my 2, and I'm probably going up about halfway up his head, just clearing out all this bulk. And you guys see he has a lot of overgrowth, so just doing this basic step is going to help you in the long run. If you try to fade out and just start doing your fade steps into all this hair, it's going to be difficult for you. And I know a lot of beginner barbers, they try to just start giving the fade, you know, as soon as possible in this bulky hair, and then they wonder why their fade isn't coming out as good. Well, it's because of all that hair that you can't see through, and so now you got to take longer in your hair cutting process, and your guidelines just aren't going to be as accurate. So again, I'm going through all the way around his head, just clearing out all this stuff, and then I'm gonna go in with my trimmers and set in my initial ball guideline. And this shape, you know, it's kind of like a rough draft. I don't need to be super deliberate when I'm clearing out this bulk. Obviously, I don't want to go up too high and change the way that the fade looks, but I'm just clearing out bulk right here so I can go ahead and start my fade process. So now that is all cleared away, I'm going to take my trimmer and just bald out everything. Again, this is going to be a mid drop fade, so I'm going to start kind of near in the middle of his C-cup area, and I'm going to drop it towards the back as I get close to his occipital bone. I want to keep hair above that so that he has a good shape as we set in this fade. If you start going past that occipital bone in the back and go too far up, his head shape is gonna, you know, it's not gonna look good for his fade and his style that he's going for. So I always, more times than not, I do a drop fade just so the fade kind of contours to my client's head shape and it's tailored to them. You don't want to be, you know, one of these cookie cutter barbers that gives only one style of fade to every single client, because sometimes it's not going to fit their head shape the best. So again, once I set that in, I'm going to be clearing out all this bulk and getting everything as bald as we can. That's going to separate a regular bald fade to a great bald fade, is getting everything under that guideline as bald as possible. And we'll come back with our shavers and get it all the way skin bald, but do what you can with your trimmers, following that shape, following that guideline, and just clear out all of this hair that's underneath that guideline. And you guys see me, I'm placing my trimmer downwards. I wouldn't recommend, if you are a beginner, doing that. I can do it because first off, these aren't my super sharp trimmers, but also I know that all of my clippers are set, so I can easily get that line out once I go back and start doing my fade. So I'm not worried about it. If you are new, I would say start off either putting your guideline in this way or start with your clippers all the way closed. That way it's not going to be a super heavy line that you're not going to be able to take out, and then now your client has a line in his head as he's leaving the door, or as he's leaving the shop. So I see a lot of beginner barbers also, you know, they'll come in and they'll keep their tools running the whole time. They don't really shut it off in between steps, and so their clippers get really hot, and that's not comfortable for the client. So if you're not touching the head, I recommend turning your tools off, just so you can make sure that it stays cooler longer. You're not going to be burning your client's skin with hot tools. So just a little tip for the new people that are watching the video. I'm gonna come back in with my foil shaver. Just under that, I don't wanna go all the way up to the line. I just wanna hit the very bottom, just so we have a little bit more transition. We get it all the way shaver bald at the bottom. It's really gonna make the fade pop at the end. And I like to do this step, you know, before everything else, so I don't have to come back and do it later. And as you guys see me doing this, I'm going down with the grain of the hair because it's gonna soften that transition. If I just go straight up to that line, punching it in with the shaver, it's gonna leave a super harsh line, because this is as close to skin as you can get besides using a straight razor. So to soften up any areas in between this and your initial line, you can go with the grain, with the direction that the hair grows, just so you're not putting in a line that's gonna be impossible to take out. Now, I'm gonna set in my first guideline with my clipper, lever all the way open, and I'm going up following that shape. I'm gonna go up about a finger's width, kind of stretching this out so we have room to blend and get a good gradient transition in this area. And as I'm going up towards the top of this guideline, I'm kind of flicking out. That way I don't set in a super harsh line that's going to be harder to take out later. So that's kind of the basis of getting a nice fade in. You don't want to set in these super harsh transition areas, and you know, give yourself more work as you go out through this fade. So you can get this step in really quickly. Just make sure that it's clean, and make sure that it's following that same shape as your initial guideline. So now it's punched in. Now it's time to start fading this line out. So I'm gonna start again open towards the top of that guideline, and as I go down, I'm gonna click my lever each notch. Right, so I start open, and I'm gonna click it down one notch, and I'm just gonna go just below where I left off. And as I go down, I'm clicking that lever each notch until I'm all the way closed at the bottom, and you'll see that bottom line disappear and the fades start coming together. So I'm gonna do this all the way around this guideline, just making sure that every line in this guideline at the bottom is completely softened and gone. You know, you see a lot of people come and, you know, I'll put them on blast. You'll see a lot of people come out of sports clips with lines in their haircuts and their fades and whatever, and that's because they don't really take the time and the care to really get that transition all the way out. And that's really what's gonna separate, you know, the cosmetologists from the barbers, and then barbers from great barbers is really putting in that detail and making sure that all the lines are out of your fade. You guys see that line is definitely starting to come out. Good basis to our fade. And unfortunately, he's not going to get any beard work today, you know. He got a little crazy with the clippers at home and decided to cut off his beard. So we're going to let that grow back in, and hopefully here soon be able to fix it up real nice for him once it starts to grow out and we can get it edged up again like how he likes. But tell your clients, man, come into the shop. He can attest to that. He's done stuff before where we completely messed up his haircut and his and his beard work, and then we had to start from scratch. So, you know. But again, I'm just trying to soften up this line, clearing out any dark spots that I see throughout the fade. And you don't really want to spend too much time on this since it's the beginning of the fade. You just kind of want to get through your fade steps, and then you can always come back later and get your detail work done. And when I say that, that means that I'm going back through my steps and really just fine-tuning any dark spots that I see, any lines of demarcation, anything that's making this fade not look like how I want it. So, but you guys can see this fade is definitely, this transition right here is definitely looking super, super clean, super smooth. Transition is looking pretty good, so now it's time to set in my second guideline. I'm going to use my number 1 guard. And again, every time I put in a new guideline, I always start all the way open. Just keeps you more safe because you can always take off more hair. You can't really put it back on after you're done. So again, following that shape, I'm going up again about another finger's width, another inch, some would say. So after that, I see a bit of bulk around his parietal ridge. You see all this bulk above our transition. I'm going to come in with some clip rover comb just to kind of clear out some of this bulk and start defining my shape. So I'm bringing my comb in to the hair, and then I'm tilting out because I don't want to create a round shape on this haircut. I kind of want to get in there and then create like a square-ish shape. So I'm going in, I'm tilting out, and I'm just knocking any hairs that are going past the shape that I want to create. Alright, so I cleared out some bulk. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to come back and define that shape after I'm done with all my fade steps anyway. So, and let me go ahead and I'm just going to grab my number 1 again just so I can make sure that that guideline is exactly how I want it to be. And guys, don't be afraid to use your chair. You don't want to be walking around your client the whole time. Use that chair. That's why it swivels. That's why it has hydraulics on it, so you can move and use the chair to be in the best position to be able to give your client the best service that you can. So again, I'm taking my half guard and it's time to blend out my number 1 guard area. Closing the lever little by little as I go down in this transition. Guys, don't worry about his ears. They like to get super red. You touch them like that, they start getting super bloodshot. So yeah, don't at me in the comments. You guys can definitely see that fade starting to come together. And the same thing with as with your chair, don't be afraid to move your client's head into position so that way you can get all the hairs cut. Sometimes they like to fight with you, so you just slap them in the back of the head and then, you know, force them to go forward. No, don't do that. Unless you're like super good friends with your client, like my client is right now. Super good friends. He's been coming to me now for about 6 years, right? It's been about that long. About 6 years, so, you know, we like to have fun in the chair. No Diddy. Again, the fade is all about softening your transition areas. Any line or any guideline that you put in, it's just about softening it to where everything looks uniform and gradient. So now I'm back in with my number 2 guard. That's what we use to clear out all this bulk. So I'm going to use that open and start going into this bulk up top near his parietal ridge. So I start open always. Again, it's way safer for me to do that. And with this guard, I don't really have to worry about closing it little by little. I can just come in directly under that with it all the way closed. So I'm gonna go around, all the way around his head using this number 2 guard open, and I'm flicking out into that shape we created. And then once I'm done going all the way around his head, I'm gonna come back through just underneath that with my number 2 all the way closed to soften that transition again, and then we're gonna come back with our our 1.5 guard and really tighten up that area underneath. So whatever your number 2 closed doesn't get out, you can come in with your 1.5 guard and really make sure that there's no bulk, there's no dark marks in between that area. You really have to listen to your tools and watch your blade. If you're worried about just the teeth going in, well, then your tools aren't cutting any hair if you're just watching the front teeth. So you really got to listen, pay attention, and watch your blade and see which hairs you're actually cutting. So now I'm taking my 1.5 guard and I'm starting open and flicking into that area. As you can see, there's kind of like a darkness right here that the 2 didn't get. So I'm gonna go in and play with this 1.5 guard, flicking my lever and figuring out what needs to be lightened up. And so now you guys can see the area is starting to come out. It's starting to get blended. And then we have a super dope fade. And after I'm done with my fade, I'm gonna go in and attack the top with some shear work. And so you guys can, I can show you guys how to get that done. If you've never used shears, if you're scared of using shears, you don't have to make it super difficult. It's actually pretty easy if you do it the way that I'm about to show you. And I'm not the best when it comes to my shear work, but I make it simple enough to where I can get a good haircut for my clients and make sure that the top is all even and that the hairstyle looks good. And so right now I'm just hitting some detail work on any bulk areas that I see before I really go ahead and define this shape with some clipper over comb again, and then get into my shear work up top. After the shear work, I'm gonna edge them up, and then that's gonna be the end of the haircut. So here I drop down to my number 1 guard because I saw a little bit of bulk that I couldn't get out with my 1.5, and I'm just using a lot of the corner of the blade to flick out any dark spots that I see in that transition. And if you guys have any questions ever, if you want me to explain, something that, I don't get in this video, feel free to drop a comment and so I can answer them for you. If you have any questions about this haircut or the tools that I'm using, or just any questions about barbering in general, I'd love to talk to you guys about that. I'm just super passionate about barbering and everything barbering and hair related, so feel free to drop in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys. But so now we just kind of finished this fade. I'm gonna go ahead and really define this line in between the top see. So we're just softening up this bulk area before we do any sort of shear work to tie it all in into the top. You guys, sometimes you saw me going horizontal doing clip rubber comb, and then now you guys see me going up. So if I ever want to clear out any bulk, I'm going to go across horizontally and I'm clearing out a bunch of bulk. And if I want to start blending, that's when I'm going to go vertical, because that way you're creating layers as you go up. The hair from here up is going to lay on top of each other, and that's really what's going to give you some good layers, some good texture, and make sure that nothing is sticking up past. There we go. That fade is looking super, super good. Now it's time to attack the top. So I'm gonna take a middle section from his whirl in the back, and that's gonna be my guideline to cut the top of his hair. And I'm brushing away the hair that is not going to be in that guideline. So now, if you guys can see, we have this middle kind of mohawk section going down towards his forehead. And so I'm going to take the hair up with my shears. And I'm probably not going to take too much off the front, just so we have that kind of textured fringe kind of look. So I'm gonna pull up from the back and try to match what we already cut back here, right? So here's my guideline that we already cut. I'm just gonna cut anything that's hanging over that, and that's gonna be the start of our guideline for the top. And as you see, every time I move forward, I'm picking up part of my section and then whatever needs to be cut beyond that. All right, so again, I'm pulling up. Here's my section right here, and you see this hair that's sticking over. I'm just cutting anything to match my initial starting point. And again, as I go towards the front, there shouldn't be that much that I'm cutting off of the top. I just want to make sure that everything's nice and even for this hairstyle. And I'm even over directing the front hairs backwards so we had some length to play with in the front. There we go. So our initial guideline has just been cut, and so now I'm going to take that guideline, I'm going to split it to the right and to the left. So here I split it to the right. I'm going to pull that section up and just cut anything that is going past our guide, right? I'm just traveling this all the way back until I reach his crown area. Now, if we were going to cut a lot off, you'd really be able to see a difference in your guideline versus the hair that needs to be cut. So here I have a guideline right here. I have a guideline from over here from what we cut already. Now I have a peak in the middle, and I'm just going to cut off that triangle peak. Right, and I'm almost to the crown. This is probably going to be my last section back here. Pulling up and just cutting off any peak that doesn't match. So now we just cut the right side. I'm going to pull that middle section and we're going to bring it to his left side and resaturate the hair if you need to, just so you can always maintain some good control of the hair. Again, so I'm going to bring that middle section to his left side now. Here's my guide. You see that longer hair on this side. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah, I know I'm wearing a black smock, so hopefully you guys can see the guideline that I'm pulling up and the difference in the hair length. So here's my guide right here. There's a longer length on this side. And we're just matching up that middle guideline as I go back to his crown area. After I'm done cutting the top horizontally, I'm going to bring it all vertical with vertical sections just to make sure that everything is in fact even on top, because you know, if you're cutting horizontally, sometimes you're not going to hit every hair super even, so you just want to cross-check your work, and the way to do that is you go the opposite direction that you were initially cutting it. So now I'm all the way to the back, and now I'm going to brush the hair forward and just take some vertical sections and make sure that everything is all even up top. All right, so here is some hair. There's some longer hairs up here. I'm just going to snip off anything that is hanging past that traveling guideline that I set at the beginning. And again, there shouldn't be too much unevenness if you did your steps correctly. Just a couple of things to fix. It shouldn't be super difficult. You're just mashing up and cutting off anything that's sticking up past that guideline. Right here I have a little bit of long hair that I missed, so I was doing my horizontal sections. But everything's looking pretty good so far. And for him, I like to add a lot of texture, so after this I'll go back in and do some point cutting to add some good texture so that he can mess it up and wear kind of like a good textured look. And the way to do that is, so when I say point cutting, basically you're cutting in unevenness in the hair. I know that sounds counterproductive, but you're doing it in a way that's accurate, right? You don't want to just go in here and start chopping all kinds of hair, but you can break up the hair and have the hair lay on top of each other. So when I do my point cutting, I pull up a section and I'm gonna tilt my shears towards me, and I'm just cutting little divots in the hair to make sure that it's uneven but accurately uneven. Every peak and every valley is gonna match. And so you can do that vertically through the hair. I like to go in both directions, so I can go vertical and I can also go horizontal, and just cutting in some good texture, so that way if he decides to wear any sort of product, or even just, you know, let it air dry, he can have some nice play in there, and it's not super you know, blunt cut. Right, so I'm just going in super quick, adding some much needed texture in this hair. And guys, so you guys see a glove on my right hand. I don't usually wear gloves, but I had hair in the bed of my nail, and it ended up getting infected. So now the nail is, like, you know, fixing itself, and I want to protect my finger from that again. So I gotta wear a glove on this hand. Is what it is, I guess. I don't really like wearing gloves when I'm cutting hair. I feel like it limits the feeling that I have from clipping hair. So now the top is all even, but I want to make sure that the transition from the top to the sides looks good. So I'm gonna brush all this hair in the direction that it naturally goes, and then I'm gonna pull up some sections on the side where the top meets the side, and anything that's hanging over square, I'm just gonna cut off, and that's you know, gonna take away any bulk that's hanging over from the top to the sides. And I'm gonna do that all the way around the head, kind of flaring out a little bit, so we can create some layers on top of layers, and it'll seamlessly blend in and connect the top to the sides. So hopefully I made this cut super simple for you guys. If you can do it correctly, it's a super nice look, especially for you know, your white guys that want a little bit of sauce to their style. If they don't want to just go around rocking a normal haircut, they can rock something like this. It just, you know, it makes them look a little bit, you know, some extra stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, you guys know what I mean. All right, and so that is our haircut pretty much. I'm gonna go ahead and get this blow dried. I'm using a diffuser within, just because if I use direct heat and air, it's not gonna give them the texture that I want. So I need a diffuser that's gonna break up the air as it's drying. This is gonna get it as close to natural air dry with a hair dryer as possible. All right, and the last thing to do is just get a nice natural edge up on him. His edge up isn't super crazy. It's pretty light. So we're just gonna hit anything that's hanging over his natural line. And get it as crispy as possible on the side. Now, he doesn't get a front edge up because of this style. You don't really need one. The hair is gonna cover the front line anyway. So I like to just create my C cups and then go in a little bit on his vertical bars. Not too much, just enough to make it to where, like, you know, it looks like he has a nice crispy edge up, right? There, super natural. I'm gonna hit the other side. And then we're gonna be done with this haircut. A quick spray around his fade with the alcohol. And the alcohol is just gonna make sure that he doesn't bump up, he doesn't get any infections from the haircut. You know, all my tools and stuff are super clean, but it's just an extra precaution to make sure that it's closing the pores and finishing off this haircut. But this is the final look. I'm gonna mess it up in the front. He doesn't usually wear it this way, but I think that's the best way that it looks, and he's gonna mess it up anyway after this haircut. But this is the final style. This is your mid fade with a textured fringe up top. We added some texture. We got a nice gradient blend going on. You guys see that texture up top as it's going forward and flowing over each other. But that's how you do a nice gradient, nice textured look on this style of haircut. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out my other videos. I have a bunch of tutorials up. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been Pico.Blurred. I'll catch you guys on the next one.